Jumbo.
Jumbo.
Welcome. We're so glad that you're joining us here on
Yes.
Operation Power. We're coming to you via Black Power Media Reloaded, and we're pleased to be a part of all the offerings that this group has and to be a part of what they're bringing. This is Operation Power. I am the co-host, Inez Barron, along with my husband, the bold, the outspoken, the one, the only, the unbought, the unbossed.
And I say the humble servant, Charles Barron. And it's an honor to be on with the love of my life, my wife of 43 years, the stunningly beautiful
Thank you.
and the intellectually brilliant Inez Barron.
Thank you so much. Once again, you're a part of Operation Power, a voice for Black radical politics and revolutionary change. And we bring topics to you that are exciting, that are interesting, that are relevant. And today we've got another exciting topic, and it's called Black August, a commemoration of Black resistance and revolution. And we've got three extraordinary guests
Yes, we do.
who will be joining with us today. We've got Margaret Kimberly, we've got Jalil Muntkim, and we have got Lumumba Bandeli, all people who have been in the movement. And in fact, our special guest is also, in fact, a prisoner of war, political prisoner. And we want to make sure that we give all of them time to be able to share their ideas with us on this very important topic. But we do want to take a time to have a libation video. We know that our ancestors made great sacrifices for us to be at this point and to pass the mantle to us so that we can continue and share what we know and pass it on to our children. So we do have a video that we want to share with you at this time, which gives honor to our ancestors.
African people, nothing important happens without a libation. And so for this very important presentation, we begin by the pouring of libation. We pour libation first to our first ancestor, to that hidden one who, though hidden, manifests in all things as all things, that God, goddess idea in the universe by any and all names. To our first ancestor, we pour libation, Ashe. We pour libation too to our ancestors because they were the first people on this planet, mothers and fathers of all mankind, flashpoint of the human family. To those ancestors, we pour libation, Ashe. Pour libation too to our ancestors because they were the ones who first gave birth to the idea of civilization, knew we would need a form of governance, and they nurtured that idea along the Nile until it reached its zenith in Kemet. There they built these gigantic monuments as evidence of that great civilization, and they carved instructions on the walls of temples and tombs for us, so we would never forget. To those ancestors, we pour libation, Ashe. Pour libation too to our ancestors because over time they put together all the tenets of civilization and they took those ideas and left the continent. They were the people of the first Exodus. They left Africa and went all over the world and peopled the world. To those ancestors we pour libation, Ashe. We pour libation too to our ancestors because they did not sit on their laurels. They continued to improve, continued to evolve, and at each point of evolution, they again would leave the continent and settle and resettle the planet. They met themselves coming and going. To those ancestors, we pour libation, Ashe. Pour libation too to those ancestors because over time, they found themselves the object of a forced exodus when they were kidnapped, shackled, cargoed, shipped out of Africa and enslaved in diasporas around the world. To those ancestors, we pour libation, Ashe. Pour libation too to the ancestors left at home, the very young, the aged, the infirm, left to reinvent themselves, depleted of us, human resources. But they were enjoined by us in the diasporas, both objects of a global myopia that ruptured the soul of a people as it ravaged a continent. To those ancestors, we pour libation, Ashe.
Ashe. Ashe-o.
Ashe-o.
We always want to make sure that we invite our ancestors to be part of the gathering where we share information such as what we've got for you today. Again, this is Operation Power, and we have a very brief portion of a video that we would like to share with you, which gives you a little background about what Operation Power is and how it got started and some of our accomplishments. So we'll share that with you at this time. Our engineer is Kiru Gichiru.
Kiru.
And he's going to share that with you at this time.
Operation Power stands for people organizing and working for empowerment and respect.
Operation P.O.W.E.R is a grassroots social justice organization founded by local community stakeholders, which includes activists, organizers, and leaders who understand that the system as it is currently structured is destroying us and our communities.
The system, the capitalist system, one that promotes human greed over human need, one that promotes profit over people, needs to be dismantled. These local community organizers recognize capitalism needs to be destroyed and replaced with socialism.
Operation P.O.W.E.R was founded in 1997 with the understanding that uprooting capitalism needs to begin locally. Operation P.O.W.E.R understood that our communities are the perfect vehicle to dismantle this parasitic capitalist system brick by brick, and the economic, political, and cultural institutions and other systems in place in our local community.
Thank you so much, Operation P.O.W.E.R. And we've got a few books that we want to call to your attention. And the first one is written by Charles Barron and is entitled Speaking Truth to Power. It is a collection of articles and essays and talks that he has had over the years, and it's a compilation of that and very inspiring. The second book is entitled It's Not You, It's Capitalism, Why It's Time to Wake Up and How to Move On. And the author is our dear friend Malika Jabali. It's a great introduction to capitalism as well as an extended look at the impact of capitalism. The next book is in fact a novel. It's written by Kevin Barron and the title is Black Rising. It is a page turner. You won't stop until you finish. So make sure you've got time once you start it. The second is a part of the trilogy that Kevin Barron has written and is called Black Rising, Home and Abroad. And it is a continuation of the characters and themes introduced in the first book. And the third book in the trilogy is called The Threat. We encourage you to get these books. You can get them online through Barnes and Nobles, and you will be greatly pleased that you did that. Well, once again, we've got an exciting topic and we've got some fantastic guests that we're going to be hearing from. Black August, Commemoration of Black Resistance and Revolution. And our three special guests that we have are here with us. And we've got Margaret Kimberly. She's a journalist. She's an author. She's part of the Black Agenda Report. And she's the author of the book, Prejudential, Black America and the Presidency. Our second guest that we've got with us is Jalil Muntakim. He is a Black Panther Party veteran. He is a veteran of the Black Liberation Army, BLA, and he is, in fact, one of the people that we're going to be highlighting, the whole group of people that fought for us and sacrificed us for us and were, in fact, incarcerated for us on behalf of the work that we believe is important. And the third person joining us is our own dear friend, Lumumba Bandeli. And Lumumba is the director of Community Organizing and Advocacy Alliance for Families for Justice. So he'll be joining us shortly.
Well, we're very, very honored to have our guest. And Lumumba said he'll be joining us about 5-10 minutes into the program. But we consider Black August a critically important moment of commemoration. We're not talking about Black History Month, where we do celebrations and sales, Black History Month sales, where it's commercialized and everybody and their mama is a Black historian, and we celebrate sellouts and traitors as well as those who've done well. But in Black August, which we think needs to be highlighted, extremely important to be highlighted with our people, because it is a month of resistance. It's a month of revolution, and it focuses on our brothers and sisters who are incarcerated, prisoners of war, political prisoners of war, and some, so that you know, were converted. They converted to revolutionary thought, like George Jackson and Malcolm X did as well. They went in for some crimes, but once they got in, they were converted to become revolution. And there were others like Jalil Monticum and so many others who were already revolutionaries on the outside doing revolutionary work. And when they were captured, they came in as revolutionaries. So we'll just start off if both of you can give some background of, and I know every time we think of Black August, we think of George Jackson and Jonathan Jackson, but there's so many more, W.L. Nolan, there's so many more, June Christmas and Ruchell McGee. And when we look at Fleeta Drumgo and the Soledad Brothers and John Cluchette. And so there's so much more to Black history, as great as George Jackson is, and as Black August, excuse me, as great as he was, we got to mention those others. So we'll start with you, Margaret, if you can give us some background on what it means to you and why it's so important for us to commemorate.
Well, you know, so many things happened in August. The first enslaved people arrived here in Jamestown, Virginia, in August in 1619. Nat Turner's rebellion took place in August. We know about the deaths of the Jackson brothers in August. Today is the anniversary of the signing of the Voting Rights Act, which was a revolutionary act, the result of a mass movement. It's not something to credit Lyndon Johnson with or Dr. King alone with. It was a victory for the people. But in your introduction, you made clear what makes it different, that we commemorate these events, that we commemorate these freedom fighters, that we commemorate so many things and people who are generally not discussed at all or given short shrift, or the Voting Rights Act is discussed a lot, but is it discussed the way it should be? Do we talk about that as a result of a people's struggle? So it is a special time, and it is different from Black History Month or Juneteenth or King's birthday. The thing that always annoyed me about King's birthday was that people who were pro-war, all the scoundrels will come out and say, you know, quote something from Dr. King when obviously it was his work, his real worth was something they did not care about. And Black August makes that very difficult to do. You have to be very serious. You have to be knowledgeable about our history, and you have to be, and you have to understand the way, as I pointed out about the Voting Rights Act, it was part of the liberation struggle. And people sometimes say things like, people died so you could vote, but they say it in this kind of offhand way, not about the organizing, not about the liberation struggle. So Black August in this sense is unique and powerful and very important. It's difficult to co-opt. If you're talking about people who were political prisoners, it's kind of hard to, well, who knows? This country can co-opt anything. They may find a way, but it's very difficult. So those are my thoughts about Black August.
Jalil, you know, we mentioned Black August, and also it was the Haitian Revolution in August, but also the Black Panther Party plays an important role in it. The Black Liberation Army, someone who was viewing said, make sure we mention our Prentice Bunchy Carter and some of the other Black Panthers involved in it. But what does it mean to you, Jalil, as one who was a prisoner of war and a warrior outside of the walls and one inside the walls and kept your fight going?
Assalamu alaikum, peace, peace, barakah, Jumbo, Hotep, Hari, Hafadea, Shalom, Bruza, Fain, Hirene, Alafia, whatever your native language, what's your peace and solidarity? That's an excellent question, Charles. And first of all, I want to thank you, Charles and Inez, for giving me the opportunity to speak on this very relevant topic for us as a people in this country, this corporate entity that we call America. And I also like to thank Sister Margaret Kimberly for joining us and being one of those that we have to look upon for her work in terms of Black Agenda Report.
That's right.
And how she has kept us informed on
That's
the conditions of our struggle here in the United States. It's important for us to understand that Black cause did not come out of a vacuum, right? It's just to materialize out of ethers, right? It is a result of struggles, it's a result of conditions inside the California prison system. So that's why I find the origins of it. Let's deal with that, right? The origins of it came out of California prison system because the I don't like to use the word prisoners, the incarcerated workers, Black incarcerated workers were being murdered by the Aryan Brotherhood and neo-Nazi guards. Right? And as a result of them being killed on a consistent, regular basis inside the California prison system, they decided that the necessity for them to defend themselves. And they organized what was called the Black Guerrilla Family, BGF. Okay, so we have to give a lot of homage, right, to our brothers who established the BGF, right, because they're the one who hold the line as a result of the murder of our comrades. That's the reason why George Jackson was engaged, as he had been engaged with the Soledad Brothers case, because they murdered some incarcerated workers, some brothers, right, in the old wing of Soledad prison, and they retaliated. Right, George was convicted. George was charged. He and Flide Jongo and John Couchette was charged with unaliving a prison guard in retaliation for the murder of 3 prisoners or prison incarcerated workers who were original leaders of the BGF. Okay, and so as we talk about that, and we talk about Jonathan, we talk about Comrade George. Also being murdered in August, right? Then it was in 1978, there was the murder of a brother by the name of Jeffrey Katari Golden, right? Who took the leadership of the BGF after the assassination of Comrade George. Right? He died in San Quentin Yard, prison yard, in the Adjustment Center yard. They were playing a catch with a football. He tripped, fell, busted his head on the ground, and bled out. They let him bleed out in the yard. And as a result of that being that leader of the BGF, the brothers of the BGF decided they need to do something about that. And that's when it began the process of to develop a means for which they can discuss this issue on a broader topic, broader ideal, and they came up with the goals and objective of Black August. Okay, so let's understand that Black August, it was honed out of blood, out of our blood. It was honed out of our sweat. It was honed out of our capacity to resist, right? This nefarious system of anti-Black system that we are engaged in today. So if we have that foundational understanding of what Black August is about, then we know that it is a means for which every year, right, at least at minimum every year on this month, right, we do several things. One, we fast, okay, to discipline ourselves, right? We study to discipline ourselves, right? We exercise to discipline ourselves, right? And we engage in struggle, right? Any way that you can contribute in the process of engaging in struggle as part of our discipline. So Black August actually means discipline. It means reestablishing yourself in the course of understanding our struggle, right? Historically, and that's the reason why they included other things that happened in August as part of our tradition, to understand the legacy of resistance that Black August represents. Right. With that, I yield.
Well, we have been joined by Lumumba Bandele. He's with us now. We always appreciate his work. Lumumba and I, he brought me up to so many visits to Jalil and many others, and Herman Bell, and Lumumba has worked very closely with the Malcolm X grassroots organization and a group that he's with now, and he and his wife, Monifa Bandele, who will be on with us tomorrow on WBAI. And they got the hip hop community involved in this. So Lumumba, we're just saying, what does Black August mean to you, and what is your definition of of Black August, and the importance to not celebrate it, commercialize it, but commemorate it and act.
Yeah, peace, everybody. It's good to be here. Thank you for having me. Sister Margaret, good to see you. Bob Jalil, always good to see you. Yeah, Black August means a lot, and I think Jalil summed it up quite perfectly when he said that Black August means discipline. Folks around the street say, "Stay ready, so you don't have to get ready." Essentially, that's what Black August is. Study, train, fight. Those three concepts really are about what I think a part of our movement has always emphasized, that we need to make sure that we use all tools in our toolbox. And oftentimes when it comes to exploring tools that people are not too comfortable with, they want to dismiss some of those things. And we have a long history. In fact, at no part of our presence, collective presence in the diaspora, has the armed struggle not been in existence.
That's right.
Not, it always has been. But I think there's a preference to lean towards other tools and not really lift that up. And so I think Black August reminds us that we have other tools, and we have people who've mastered those tools, that have the responsibility to make sure where we fit in that, and understanding what that history looks like, and to just be ready, because there will more than likely come a time where we have to pick up that tool and understand it is just that, a tool, right? But being clear that it is a tool in service of our full and complete liberation.
That's right. It's very, very interesting that you mentioned that, because I was listening to Jalil yesterday. Oh, what a job he did with Sister Empress and brothers and sisters from Philadelphia. But he was mentioning the importance of study, yes, but also the importance of training, that we have to be trained and ready for this revolution. And when we say revolution, I know folk have a vision of revolution, and yes, it's going to involve bloodshed. I don't know any social change movement that didn't involve bloodshed, and not even the civil rights movement was bloody.
Right.
I mean, Martin Luther King may have been about nonviolence, but the enemy wasn't about nonviolence. So those questions of how we defend ourselves, how we engage on that level is very, very important. But it's critically important that we have the mindset for the theory, the vision, the mindset to do certain actions. And that's very, very important. So Black August gives us that opportunity. Sister Kimberly, you work with Black Agenda Report, and you give so much information. What are some of the critical aspects of us raising the consciousness of our people and the contradictions in this colonial capitalist system that our young people really need to know and need to study?
Well, I think we've discussed some of those things here. There are Black August reading lists, and people can find those pretty easily. But I think we have to go back to the basics of organizing. Any victories we've had have been the results of movement organizing, and that old-fashioned. Well, we shouldn't think of it as old-fashioned. It's something that is key in bringing about any kind of change in this country, especially for Black people. There was always organization. There may have been an individual who escaped enslavement, but there were people who helped each other escape enslavement. Any number of things. I mentioned legislative victories. Anything that has been won by the people. You mentioned bloodshed. The Civil War was bloody. I don't know, and there are many people who say that slavery in this country might not have ever ended, or not ended until the 20th century without war. And people organized themselves, the United States colored troops. And, they talk about people who fought for your freedom, and they literally did fight for their freedom and others, and had to fight to the death. If they were captured, they were given no quarter. So they were organized. I could go on and on with all of the movement. It could be tenant organized. It could be any number of things that are important. And I think you can't study that enough. How do you organize? It's not a simple question. How do people work together? So it's something that has to be looked at in a serious way. It's something that has to be studied. And I want to say this. I feel like I'm rambling a little, but you know, it's treated. There are people still with us who were members, present company, of the Black Panther Party. That there were so many people who wanted to join, they often had to be turned away. This is something that is should not be seen as some kind of an ancient history. There are folks here now who can tell us about those, you know, the high watermark of Black organizing, which was essential for so many things. So that's what you asked about young people. First of all, don't complicate things. Just tell them this is what you need, especially now. You know, people have information at their fingertips. We have to make sure that sometimes it's something that's important and useful, not just something. I'm not against fun, but there's serious information that can be found out. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. I think it's important to just share this information, any means we have through the media, through this. This is, you know, an example of ways to tell younger people, to remind older people that organizing has always been an important part of our history, and that politics is not just electoral politics. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, obviously, but political activity and organizing politically is essential for us to begin the process, and it's a process of liberation for our people.
Jalil, you know, like you often mention and make the distinction between mobilizing and organizing. It's one thing to mobilize and react to issues. It's another thing to organize for power, organize for radical systemic change with a vision and with a theory to go along with it. And when we speak of the Black Panther Party and the Black Liberation Army, makes me think of people like Sekou Odinga, who was a brilliant general. I mean, so Sekou, if you can talk a little bit about him and yourself and some of the things and the kinds of sacrifices you made. What was you, 18, 19 years old? And Jonathan Jackson did what he did at 17, and little Bobby Hutton was the first Panther killed. He was like a teenager. And even overseas, Hector Peterson, 13-year-old, demonstrating against the apartheid system. So talk a bit about that discipline, the sacrifice, and what brought you into the movement at such an early age.
Well, that's a loaded question there, Charles, as you well know, because I can talk about that for a couple of days, you know what I mean? And the movement knows that as well. But I'll try to abbreviate as much as I possibly can. I joined the Black Panther Party at the age of 16. Okay, and by the age of 18, I was recruited into the Black Underground. They became known as the Black Liberation Army. Rule number 6 of the Black Liberation Army, rule number 6 of the Black Panther Party was no Black Panther can join an underground organization except for the Black Liberation Army. So when the Black Panther Party was formed by Huey and Bobby, they knew at some point in time there would be the necessity for us to engage in armed struggle. Okay, they knew that, they understood that, right? And they created the conditions for that to happen. In order for armed struggle to really evolve and to build, you have to have three factors or three intersecting organizations. One, you got to have a mass movement, something mass organizing on the ground, right? Boots on the ground, mass organizing, what the Black Panther Party did. right? Black Panther Party is one of the first started the free breakfast programs. One of the breakfast programs in these schools.
That's right.
I started the clinic, health clinics in our communities. There were no health clinics in our communities before the Black Panther Party, at least not at the level that they organized, right? They started the transportation to go visit your family members in prison, right? They're the ones who initiated the sickle cell anemia research of doing testing for sickle cell. It wasn't even talked about before the Black Panther Party. That's mass organizing. That's building a foundation for which you can organize and build out on. Lumumba can talk more about that in terms of mass organizing with his organization, grassroots movement, Malcolm X grassroots movement. Well, that's what they do. They do mass organizing, right? But underneath that, you have to have an infrastructure, right? The infrastructure meaning that you have to have the capacity from which you can ensure that those who are doing the underground or operational, right, have the resources so they can continue. Okay, that means setting up health underground hospitals, for instance, safe houses, for instance, armed depots, for instance, the means from which you can move people from one place to another place. For instance, that's an infrastructure, right? Because we had the health clinics in the above ground. I'll give you an example. Because we had the health clinics in the above ground, right? We had doctors wanting to work for us on the underground. Okay, that's how we was able to find them, right, and organize them and get them involved and get them engaged. Okay, from the health clinics, right? The health clinic established foundation will have a relationship with doctors, and then those doctors who became politicized was willing to sacrifice and support those in the underground. Or an injured person was injured, we know we can't take them to the hospital, right? Because they're going to turn over to the police. So we had to create our own underground hospitals, underground clinics. Right? We had doctors. So it is the masses of the people who are the foundational for revolutionary determination, right? And then outside that, the smaller aspect of the struggle is the armed struggle itself, right? All right. So if you don't have a mass organization, you're not organized on a mass level, you cannot create the infrastructure, right? Nor will you be able to have those individuals who are engaged in struggle on the armed level, right? On the underground level, on the clandestine level, you won't be able to have them continue to function and operate, right? Because of the mass movement is not organized, the infrastructure is not established, and then we don't have the operatives, those who want to put their life and liberty sacrifice their life and liberty, as I did, right? As many of us did. And also, we have to important to understand that the Black Panther Party or the youth movement.
That's right.
There was no one in the Black Panther Party over the age of 30 years old in the opposite of the Black Panther Party. These are people who was in their teens and in their 20s. Probably getting their first job in their life, right? Or thinking about going to college, okay? Graduating from high school. But they were dedicated, right? They love for their people. They just want to put their life and their liberty on the line. And so it's important for us to understand those kind of dynamics in regards to what mass organizing is. We have, as George mentioned in his book, Blood Mine, right? We got to get pen and clipboards, all right? And go door to door. Right, we got to do phone banking, call people up, right, on the issues that address people's needs. We got to do canvassing, go door knocking, right. We got to get flyers. What made the Black Panther Party strong, right, was that we had people selling newspapers on the corners over the cities across the country. Okay, because that means you had direct communication, direct contact with people. Okay, and so we have to build organization. We have to build the capacity from which we can have a direct relationship and connection with the people, right? And be able to define their needs, right? From the people to the people, from the masses to the masses is the principle that we have to apply. Okay, and when we do so, right, we can build something that's sustainable, right? That can be, well, at least to the point where the enemy forces will take note that these people are serious. Okay, and let me make this point also clear. Right, when the FBI deemed that the Black Panther Party was the greatest internal threat to the domestic security of the United States, it wasn't as a result of us engaging in an armed struggle. It was a result of us feeding our babies. Right? It was a result of dealing with the health clinics in our community. Right, they're saying us being independent rather than dependent on the government. Right, and that's what made the Black Panther Party a threat. So if we want to be a threat to the system of fascism and white supremacy, right, divorce yourself from the system and organize independently, right, and unify our forces across the country.
Well said. Well said. Lumumba The hip hop community. I understand you did some great things in organizing something in Cuba, was it? With the hip hop artists and getting them involved. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's interesting because the idea of us, Malcolm X Grassroots Movement, doing the Black August Hip Hop Project actually came out of our freedom fighters. In 1997, myself actually was probably maybe about 4,000 young people from the United States who attended the World Youth Festival in Havana, Cuba. And while we were there, two of our exile sisters pulled me aside and a few other people, because at that time, my job was at the Caribbean Cultural Center. I was doing concerts, and we had all of these relationships with artists and hip hop. Particularly the conscious hip hop was like a thing. We had these relationships, and they both, Mama Nahanda and Asada, separately said the same thing to me. They said, "Well, look, you have these relationships. Why don't you use this art form as a way to raise awareness and consciousness around our freedom fighters at home?" Okay, seems like it's something we could do. We came back, and at that time, Malcolm X Grassroots Movement was popularizing this idea of Black August as a concept to re-engage our communities into the history of our armed struggle tradition and begin to become more closely related to it. And so we had the idea, well, why don't we call it, a Black August Hip Hop Project Concert? And we had to go through some things, first of all, just to get the approval to use that name. And we were able to do that with the help of Dr. Matulu Shakur and a few other folks out in California. But the idea really was to use hip hop as a tool to share information, to bring people together. And what we did was took the concept of the traditional and commercial concerts and flipped it on its head. So when you go to a regular concert, you're inundated by all of these corporate ads, Coca-Cola, beer, cigarettes, all of that. And we replaced that with political education stuff. So when you walk in, there's lines of tables of organizations that are doing the work. When you're watching the show, the images behind the performers are images of Jalil, images of Sekou, images of Matulu, images of Nat Turner, of Denmark Vesey, of Harriet Tubman. So we flipped all of that and made it a really intense political education experience and directed people to the organizations that were there so they could become engaged in it. And so we did that for about 15 plus years. And over the years, we had some of the top hip hop artists, and not just hip hop, just to be clear, because we had Gil Scott-Heron, we had Erykah Badu, a bunch of other folks. But we had all of these people, and throughout the entire 15 years, not one of those artists were ever paid. They all volunteered their time. And if I'm being real honest, some of them went above and beyond and came out of their own pocket to fly their bands in so they could perform. So people had a real commitment to it that was really inspiring. And I'll share this one anecdote that I think helps to illustrate how utilizing art as a tool, particularly in this case, hip hop, can be very effective if we are very intentional with it. In 98 or 99, I forget which year, we got Common to come with us to Cuba. The other part of the concert also was we took the artists to Cuba. And we also went to other parts of the diaspora where the hip hop communities existed. And in Cuba at that time, there was a hip hop festival in Alamar, Cuba. And so we took the artists there and we had a whole bunch of cultural exchanges. But at that trip, Common had the ability to sit down with Sister Asada. And she transformed all of these artists, everybody from Dead Prez to Common, to Waleed, to Mos Def, to all of these people. They will tell you that they were changed having sat with both her and Nahanda. He came back and recorded a song called Song for Asada.
Yes, he did.
We can't quantify now how many people know about our heroine because of this song. Up until that point, what we were doing was giving out trifolds, flyers here and there. So we were limited in terms of what we were able to use. And so the idea really was not to get artists to just come and do this, but really to get them to change their lens and how they saw their relationship to movement, and use their creativity to do that without actually having us say, hey, we need you for this particular project. So it's almost like a politicization process. So we recognize that that was a huge, huge shift. And we were able to thank him and some of the others when we did our tribute to Mama Sada this past, and he came and performed there as well.
Yes, he did.
So I say all of that to say that, you know, that was the concept that we did. And another illustration of terms of the impact of it, while we were going to different elected officials' offices, other people, we were trying to really get folks to support the release of our political prisoners. We had at least 10 different instances where we are introducing people to folks like Jalil, folks like Herman, like Seth, and we were stopped. It was like, I know who they are. I was at your Black August show.
Oh.
Like, okay. You know, and so those things really, you know, had an impact, but we also realized that as an organizing tool, it had its limits, because what we were engaging in with Black August was an awareness campaign. And we had to shift from an awareness campaign to a freedom campaign, which meant that we had some very specific strategies that we were going to utilize to get people out of prison. We were not satisfied with, yay, people know who Jalil is, yay, people know who. No, that's not going to bring them home, because at the same time, they were dying behind bars. And we didn't have the luxury to wait for people to be inspired to create a mass movement. It was like, no, we actually needed to have a very pointed and intentional strategy to bring them home.
Well, you know what I like to swing to, because oftentimes during this month, we mention a lot of the brothers, but there were sisters like Afeni Shakur, who Inez and I knew very, very well. Powerful, powerful sister. And I know you all know Sister Joan Bird, who a lot of people don't know about. Joan Bird. They know about Asada and Afeni, but Joan Bird was a bad sister. Her and Afeni was very, very close. And Sophia Bakari, who also was a powerful, powerful sisters. So let's take a moment and each go around and talk about some of the powerful revolutionary sisters in our movement. Kimberly? You're mute.
Cable?
Oh, she's muted herself.
Muted.
There you go.
I think I was it's like trying to get out of a car and somebody's unlocking it and you're locking yourself. I can't add too many names from those that you mentioned, but I wanted to add something else. I'm sorry, I'm slightly changing the subject. But we're in the midst of a new iteration of state repression in this country. They have told us so. The Trump administration has announced NSPM 7, which basically criminalizes left politics. This document that Marco Rubio released last week, which mentions people in the liberation movement, people, organizations working who exist right now. So I certainly hope that we use this knowledge, our memory of a particular time, to prepare ourselves in the future, to be disciplined, as Jalil Muntakim was saying, because there's repression starting again. And I hope we don't think of these folks that we have been talking about as just being lessons for the distant past. These are lessons we need to know right now. But you mentioned the women of the movement, and I was thinking of the Panther 21, and I'm blanking on a name. I'm a bit embarrassed, but it wasn't one woman and 20 guys, was it? I think there's a tendency to overlook the women who also, and of course we know about Asada, we know about Afeni Shakur, but there were many others in addition to them who played quite a role in in all of these organizations, in the Black Panther Party, in RAM. I don't know if anybody mentioned RAM. Other women in the I'm having a senior moment. I'm very sorry. In the movement. So we have to know about all of these folks. This is terrible. I can see someone's face and I am blanking completely. But I said that in the beginning because we've got to be ready now. There is a new repression starting. They've told us. Trump said there's an enemy within. We still have the usual enemies, and they are ramping up again. So I certainly hope that we use the month of August to be in preparation for that.
That were in the forefront, these were bold sisters because it's quite well known that this was a male-dominated movement in many instances, and sisters who were committed had to fight and had to struggle and had to assert themselves into many of the leadership positions that they assumed during that time. So as we think about these sisters and their names and their faces come to us, they deserve that extra oomph because they fought and they demanded that they have a prominent role in the work that was being done. And we're pleased to say that they were very successful in getting that done.
Brother Jalil?
Yes, we can name them, right? We can name Sandra Pratt, who was murdered in L.A., who was the wife of Geronimo Jaja Pratt. We can name Malika Adams, who was the paramour and wife of Noah Sheikh Noah Washington at one point in time. We can name Joan Bird. We can name a bunch of sisters who were engaged and involved with our struggle. But one in particular, well, actually two, but one in particular was very close to me that I have to give honor to every time I get a chance to, is Sophia Asa Bukhari, right? My beloved comrade and sister, right? Warrior sister, right? A sister who took over the Harlem branch of the Black Panther Party, and when they wiped them out with the Panther 21 case, and took over some leadership in Bryan. She went underground to help. As a result, she and her brother by the name of oh man, the name I'm forgetting one of your senior moments there, sister Ashante, who was involved with that, and also my brother. Okay, anyway, right, engaging, trying to get us out of prison, right, and resulted in them being going into the underground. Baba Suni Ali, as my dear sister says, my dear beloved sister says, right, and many others. But she, as an example, right, not only did she relent in terms of her discipline, right, but when she got captured, she escaped. Not once, twice escaped. And when she was captured, she fought her own case, as Afeni did in Panther 21 case, fought her own case and won. Right? Returned, got released from prison, returned, and got right back into the movement. Became a co-founder of the National Jericho movement. Okay, her, Barbara Herman Ferguson, and myself. Right now, I'm the only living member of the founder of the National Jericho movement, which is now under severe scrutiny for the federal government because we support political prisoners. Okay, so it's important for us to give homage, right, to our beloved comrade sisters who had sacrificed, like Assata Shakur. I got a story. Briefly, I want to say about Assata Shakur. That is, for me, I hold on to. People say, well, Assata taught me, right? And I don't know what they practice what they Assata taught me, but that's what they say, right? And so Assata taught me one thing. We had a meeting with her at the time it was the New York 5 before it became New York 3. We had a meeting with her in Tombs with our lawyers and so forth. And she posed a question to us, right? And the question was this here. If they brought you a bowl of Richard Nixon's excrement and say, eat this bowl, right, and we'll let you go, what would you do? Okay. And the five of us try to figure out all kinds of ways to convince these people to let us go without eating this bowl, right? And she looked at us like, who was crazy? Right? So we asked her, she said, well, Sada, what would you do? With a straight face, she looked us right in the eye, she says, I tell her, give me a spoon. What does that mean? I said, what? Give me a spoon. She said, it's not about me. It's about how fast I can get back in the community and get to work for our people, right? So if they want to humiliate me, degrade me, right, it ain't a thing. It's about getting me back out there to do the work. That's what's important. Okay, so it ain't about us individuals. It ain't about our personalities. It ain't about our own personal character. It's about the people in the struggle. Okay, and that was her commitment. Okay, and that's important that we had lesson we have to learn. A lesson I've learned, right? And that's usually oftentimes, I say it ain't about me. It's about the movement. It's about the struggle. Okay, and we have to understand that. All right, we have to put these little eyes, these big eyes in the way, right? And so we can grow these big weeds.
That's
these
right.
Big us's.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what we have to do. So that's a lesson from Masada. That's a lesson from Sophia. That's a lesson from Afeni. That's a lesson from Joan Bird. That's a lesson for Sandra Pratt. That's a lesson from Malika Adams. That's a lesson for all our sisters who was engaged in our struggle at the time they were involved and continue to engage and leave a legacy of resistance.
That's right.
From Harriet Tubman to Asara Shakur. Okay.
Well said. Well said. I want to address something that Kimberly brought up. Lumumba, you can address it, and all of you can. Now we're talking about the fascism, the repression that's coming now by way of Trump and the Rubio report, whether the Cuba, the attacks on Cuba, the attacks on Venezuela, the attacks on Iran, a war in which they're losing. They lost in Vietnam, they lost in Afghanistan, they're losing in Iran. And now imperialism is under severe attack, and the American empire is declining. And then the Sahel revolution in Africa is inclining. But what about us here in the belly of the beast? The 50 million Black people, African people in the belly of the beast. How do we address, the Uhuru movement, Amali Yeshitela and the three? They said they can decide who they want to support in the war against Russia and Ukraine. And because they supported Russia, they charged them with being agents of the Russian government. And they beat them in court. And then they charged them with conspiracy for doing something that the main charge they said they didn't do. The jury said, no, they're not. They're not agents of Russia. But yeah, they conspired to be agents of Russia. So they're going through that. And this Rubio report is trying to do the same thing. Any of us who support Cuba, they're saying, oh, now you're an agent of the Cuban government. So talk about that where Kimberly took us, which is very, very important. How do we address some of that here in the 21st century? Lumumba?
Yeah, I teach a class at CUNY, School of Professional Studies, a community organizing class. And a big part of my curriculum is studying movement history, and a portion of that is talking about state repression and criminalization of our political movements. You're surprised how many, maybe not, but I remain surprised how many people really do not know the history of COINTELPRO, do not know the history of McCarthy. We assume so much. We assume because it's regularly talked about in our movement spaces that the world knows about it. So when I share this as a part of my lesson, the jaws drop and people are really shocked that this happened. You mean the government spied on Dr. King? And so you're amazed that people are amazed. So I say that to say that we have to do a much better job of making sure our people know our history. We have to do a much better job of putting in context the liberation struggle that we're a part of. And whether we are actively a part of it or not, we exist in the context of this liberation movement that is happening, right? So we have some kind of relationship to it. The question is how much of a relationship. And so I raise that to say that I think it's important for people to be clear that engaging in this work will result in you gaining some kind of attention from the state. That should not be a deterrent, right? Now, it's easy for me to say that, but at the same time, people say, ain't you just telling me about all these people in prison because they were doing this work, right? It's like, yeah, but at the same time, there are millions of others who are not. And so we have to just be clear, we have to do something. So this particular moment is not new. There were other instances of criminalizing different parts of our movement. When we came back from the World Youth Festival in '97, Senator Jesse Helms said all of us needed to be arrested upon attempting to re-enter the United States because of our presence in Cuba, because we broke the blockade intentionally, right? So the state is always doing that. It's on some other kind of steroids right now. But it is going to exist. And we've always had movements that has been able to withstand this. They have casualties, no question. But we have won some major victories. We have found some significant tactics and strategies to be able to not only push back, but advance our work. And we have to be able to tell those stories so people know that it's not for nothing. So people know that this is not something that we're just going to lose. It's like, no, we've won. We've done the impossible before. Many times, and we will continue to do it. So we have to tell those stories.
Sister Kimberly, you've done a lot of good work internationally, in terms of dealing with the Sahel Revolution and Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, and also the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and now South Africa, and now 20 other organizations. How is that impacting and bringing down or contributing to the decline of the American empire internationally? You're muted.
All right, I could do it myself. It's interesting. People say the U.S. is in crisis. I'm going to reword that a little. The U.S. empire is in crisis, but I'm not going to say decline. So, for example, they will attack Iran, thinking it's going to be easy, having disregarded Iran because they're such white supremacists, believing they can break Cuba, causing great suffering in Cuba. But it's a very strange thing. The U.S. is still very powerful. The U.S. is still very dangerous to the entire world, but it is in a state of crisis. That is why they decided to, and the Treasury Secretary said they attacked Venezuela because they were getting around dollar domination. But they can't get Iran. So it's a very strange thing, this country that cannot do all of the things it used to be able to do, but is still very, very serious about asserting its interests. So it is both in crisis and a great danger to all of humanity. It's because of the BRICS that they panic. The idea of some countries being able to escape dollar domination, to be able to sell their own resources. Look what they're doing in Burkina Faso. They said if you're going to take resources out of the ground, you've got to manufacture here. That's a great thing, but that puts the capitalist system at risk because their goal is just predation, is just to take, it's just to steal. And for them to be told, what do you mean we have to actually refine materials in Burkina Faso? So you have France and others attacking Mali. I mean, very seriously. So there's a lot going on, even as the U.S. has many and domestically has many problems. We have to put these things in proper context. Why is the DSA the hot party now in politics? Because the Democratic Party is losing legitimacy. So that's part of the crisis, to have major parties lose legitimacy. That's why Trump's trying to steal the election. So they cannot depend on the things they used to depend on. That is not a bad thing in and of itself, but they are still very dangerous. That's why they focused on Cuba. They said Cuba is the center of the Black liberation movement. Cuba is spying on the U.S. Cuba is a danger to the U.S.
Mhm.
because they do not want internationalism. The last thing they want is for us to identify with Burkina Faso or with Cuba or with Iran. That presents a great danger, and that's one of the ways we have to educate folks is about internationalism and why it is seen as such a threat. Unfortunately, many people think of it as some frill, it's far away. It's not something that has to do with me. They don't see it that way. If anyone who has a connection internationally is seen as their enemy. I hope that answered.
No, you
your
definitely
question.
did. Jalil, we only have a few minutes left, and we cannot think of a better person to have the last word than you. So we want to give you that last word. And what is your position on where we are now and where we need to go?
Well, comrade, listen, I'm honored, right, to have this opportunity. Let me just say a couple of things. One, the issues of repression, okay? We have been suffering repression since we've been here. There's been no time in the existence of this country that we have not suffered repression. It's important for people to understand that this is a slave nation. Like, this has never not been a slave nation. On the same time, on the same date, on the same paper, with the same ink that they ended chattel slavery of African people, they established penal slavery.
Yes.
Right? Straight line. So when was slavery abolished? Right? Not only did they establish penal slavery, they codified it in the law, in the Constitution. Slavery is in the Constitution. All right? This is a slave nation. It has never not been a slave nation. So that's important for us to understand. So then when we talk about repression, right? Harriet Tubman was considered a terrorist, right? Marcus Garvey came under scrutiny of the FBI before J. Edgar Hoover, by J. Edgar Hoover, who was an agent at the time, right? That's why he came up with the idea of trying to search for the Messiah to prevent us having a rising Messiah, because he saw what Marcus Garvey was able to do, the greatest organizer in our contemporary time.
Yes.
Okay. And so repression is part of our existence in this country, right? It's a question of how we respond to that repression, which is important. Okay, so we cannot fear them repressing us or oppressing us. We cannot fear that. Okay, and that's important. Secondly, is this here in terms of the empire? We do understand that this is an empire, right? And history informs us that empires are not dismantled by external forces. They may be weakened by external forces, right? But empires are dismantled when the people inside the empire says, no more, we're done. We're finished. Okay. So I dare say that the world is waiting on us. We are in the belly of the beast. Okay. They're waiting on us to say, no more. We're done. Okay. Dismantle this empire. Okay. Now, in the same regards, we have to tell the international community to come to our aid, as we have over the years, over the decades, gone to the aid of Cuba, going to the aid of Venezuela, going to the aid of Gaza, going to the aid of various other countries, South Africa, going to the aid of Namibia, going to the aid of Angola, going to the aid of Tanzania. Okay, it's now time for them to come to us, come to our aid, right? Because we are in the belly of the beast, and we're going to reap the brunt of vicious repression. Right? What's coming, and we have to be prepared for. If you know anything about history, I ask anyone who does not know anything about history, go check just for entertainment's sake, right? Go check the red summer of 1919, 1920. Okay, because if you look at that, what's coming, that's gonna be like an appetizer, right? Because today the Confederates, who now control this government, the Confederates, they control the FBI, they control the NSA, they control the CIA, they control all the military, they control the National Guards, right? They control police departments across this country. That's dangerous to all of us. So now, last point I want to make, right? December 17th, 1951, the great W.E.B. Du Bois, the great Paul Robeson, the great William Patterson, brought their first case against the United States of genocides against Black, Brown, and Indigenous people. Okay. Malcolm X, in his speech, Message to the Grassroots, talked about our being genocide. Martin Luther King, in his speech, The Other America, talked about us being genocides. Okay. 2025, the October 25th, 2021, we had the International Tribunal, by a esteemed body of international jurors, found the United States guilty of the charge of genocide against Black, Brown, and Indigenous people on 5 charges. Mass incarceration. We know they mass incarcerate us, right? Institutional environmental racism. We know that many of our communities are environmental racist, polluted areas, right? Health inequities. White people live longer than Black people in this country. Why is that, right? State-sanctioned violence. They kill us with impunity across this country, and existing political prisoners. And the international jurors said accumulatively, right, looking at these cases, looking at these issues, accumulatively, it tantamount to genocide. So the United States was found guilty of the charge of genocide by esteemed body international jurors against Black, Brown, and Indigenous people. We have to understand that. It's quickest in the world, around the world. If the international jurors had found the China guilty of genocide against the Uyghurs, it's been all over international news. China found guilty by international body, right, of genocide against the Uyghurs. Why not here? Why not us? Okay. And so what we're doing as a result of that, we are to build alternative systems of governing. We have decided it's a necessity to remove ourselves from harm. We got to create alternative systems of governing by virtue of establishing a national network of progressive forces across this country. We're in communications and dialogue with each other and understanding that we have a serious force that is opposing our very existence. Okay. Well, so this is no time for fun and games, people.
Well, we want to thank you so much. We want to thank our guests. We've run out of time. We got to have y'all back again. This is just getting warmed up here. We want to thank Margaret Kimberly, Brother Jalil Montague, and Brother Lumumba Bandeli. We appreciate all of you. And you've been listening to Operation Power with my co-host, Inez Barron, and myself, Charles Barron. Stunningly beautiful, beautiful, intellectually brilliant. And we say each and every week, the truth shall set you free, and power is the great equalizer. Black power. Black power.